Welcome to the largest of three video for week number 5, CIT 90. In this video we will get 3 integers. We'll use 3 integers as input. We will process the 3 integers to figure out which one's the largest, and then we'll display the largest of the 3 input numbers. I'll go ahead and break this down into 2 parts. This first part we'll simply use 3 hard-coded values so that we can get used to the variables that we learned about in chapter 3. The first thing that I need to do is to take a existing HTML page that I know works. In this case it's my index page, and I'll modify this to largest. I'll save this, save as largest.php. I'll save this in a directory named week05 that's on my local machine, but will eventually be FTP'd to my server. I'll update the date. I think today's the 17th, and the title is going to be the largest of 3 program. My style sheet will remain the same. Give us a page title, welcome to the largest of 3 program. And this is called largest. It's largest.php. Okay, it is not an HTML file. Most of the code we write from here on out will be PHP, although we'll still have the dog type headers of XHTML, but nonetheless they'll still be PHP. So file, save this as largest.php. Yes, I'll replace it. My abouts are the same. The only thing that I'm going to change here, I'm just going to change my content like a good web designer. Just change my content. I'll let my CSS rules define the format for me. So in my main panel here, I'll start my PHP code. This is my PHP code. Can delete everything else that was there. Quite a bit. Quite a few lines. I probably should have broken that up. Wonder how that displayed. Well, anyway, it's just content, so I'm deleting all the content that was there before, and I'm going to get ready to code up some PHP code. Alright, I should have selected and deleted that, I suppose. Get rid of this P, and maybe replace this with a horizontal rule. Again, format that with whatever you like. Okay, let's code up some PHP. PHP delimiter starts out with a less than sign, and a question mark, and then PHP. Our style is lowercase, as is most style. This is the beginning delimiter of PHP. This tells the server that from here on is going to be PHP code. This ends the PHP code. So anything in between the starting delimiter here and this ending delimiter here is going to be PHP code. I've just read chapter 3. I understand variables. I have formulated this program in my mind. Maybe I have even created a flowchart. But I've decided that I need 4 variables for this program. So a comment here to tell myself what I'm doing. Comments in PHP start on a single line, start with 2 forward slashes, and I will create for variables for my program. Put exclamations around everything because I'm excited about coding in PHP. My first variable is going to be num1. When we create a variable, by the way, what is a variable? A variable, as you learned in chapter 3, a named location in memory. It has a location in memory, and the program that created it, my PHP interpreter in this case, actually assigned it a certain amount of bytes based on its type, its data type. How does PHP know what a variable's data type is? It knows it by its initial value. So here I'm going to give an initial value to a variable named num1. This variable is a PHP variable. It must begin with a $, but it's called num1. It's not called $num1. It's just variable num1. So here, if I wanted to make another comment for this, I can say $num1 will contain household, whatever will contain the first integer. Generally, we do not hard code values into programs. We get input from other places. We get input from files. In the web design world, we get obviously input from users. I'll do that in part 2. We'll actually create a form to get our input from our user. But for right now, let's just hard code up 3 variables called num1, num2, and num3. So num1's looking pretty good. I'll copy that and paste a couple more down here. Change these 1s to 2 and 3. Give them some values. Num3 is going to have a value of 13. Num2 is going to have a value of 456. Just made those up. So let's examine this statement here. This this is a PHP statement. It starts with a reserved word or a known symbol. In this case, this is a user-defined variable called num1. So $num1. This equal sign, it's not an equal sign, it's an assignment operator. This is an assignment operator. This assigns what is on the right side of the assignment operator to the variable that's on its left. So the right way to say this programming statement here is 465 is assigned to num2. The integer, it's an integer because it's a whole number. I'm actually telling my PHP interpreter that the integer 465, whole number, so please reserve 4 bytes or whatever your system requires. In our case, it's 4 bytes. Please reserve 4 bytes because I need an integer. I am assigning that to, this is the assignment operator. I am assigning this value, 465, to this variable. So this is the proper way you describe assigning a value to a variable. Some of my colleagues that come over from math will say things like set num2 equal to 456. Technically that is incorrect. What you're doing is you're assigning the value 465 to this variable named num2. My background's in computer science, so this is how I describe it. The value on the right side of the assignment operator is assigned to the operand that's on its left. Alright, so I've got 3 variables there. How about another variable named largest? And let's give that a variable of, or an initial value of 0. We have to give initial values to variables so that PHP understands their data types. In other languages like C, Java, Pascal, etc., JavaScript, you have Visual Basic, you have to tell the compiler what the data type of the variable is that you're describing. PHP figures out the data type based on the initial value. What initial values have I given to my variables here? All whole numbers. So these are all going to be of data type integer. We don't have to tell PHP that. PHP just figures it out from the initial value. Now that we have our input, let's process this. Process the 3 ints, short for integer, and find out which is the largest. Alright, so here we go. For this, you're going to have to take a peek at chapter 4 to look at decisions, but we're going to use a test or a decision. We code that up in PHP with an if statement. So it is simply if, and the condition that we're testing goes in parentheses. So if, we'll choose num1 first of all here. Use copy and paste. This will save you from making typographical errors. So if num1 is greater than num2, and let's suppose that I had a flowchart for this. My flowchart would say, well, I'll compare num1 to num2 first. If num1 is larger than num2, then num2 is out of the running. I know num2 is not going to be the largest, but I still need to check out num3. So if this is actually true, I still need to make one more check, and that's going to be, is num1 also greater than num3? If so, then guess what is the value of largest? Yep, largest is going to be num1. Semicolon. Else, the else here, again, you sneak a peek at chapter 4 to learn about the else. But the else means if this condition here, the test, is false. If it's true, this will happen. If it's false, then this will happen. So if num1 was not larger than num3, what must be our largest? Num3, obviously. So again, copy and paste so we don't make any mistakes, and this is going to be num3. My ifs here, I used to have all my beginning programming classes enclose their ifs with French braces to show the start and the end of code blocks. And I am going to do that here as well. Everything between this curly brace here is associated, it belongs to this code block. This is called a French brace or opening curly brace. This is a code block. So I can put other statements in here. This would work without these code blocks because I have a single statement here. If I have another statement here, if I don't know, some reason I wanted to add another variable and give that a value for some unknown reason, then I would need this, and I would need to enclose both these statements within these opening and closing French braces here. So you might see it in books. You might see this type of code. After, on the plus side of an if, a true side of an if, you can get by with a single statement like this. So when in doubt, just add them in. I'll add in my French braces just like this, so that there's no doubt what goes with what. We now have to, let's use an else here. Now I'm on this if. If this condition failed or was false, so if num1 was not greater than num2, what would we need to do? Well, we need to still, we would know that num1 is out of the running. We would still need to check num2 against num3. So the same thing here. Let's see how we got messed up. It's okay. Indentation is everything. It will really help you keep your code straight. I use two-step indentation. This will make sense. It's almost unreadable now. Take the time to align everything like I'm doing, and your code will make sense. Okay, except for the logic. So this else is with this if. This means that this condition was false. So num1 is not greater than num2. Now I have to check to see if num2 is greater than num3. If it is, the largest is num2, else the largest would be num3. So you can see this entire, this is a control structure. It's the decision control structure. Again, chapter 4 talks about that ad infinitum. But this is a control structure, this is a control structure, and this right here is a control structure. Oh, look what we can do to make this more clear. Opening French brace here at the beginning of the if on the last line, on the next line, excuse me, and then close the French brace here. Now you can clearly see, I can see at a glance, this is one big if statement. It has inside it two smaller if statements. If this was a flowchart, this would be a decision. If I have a chance, I'll draw a flowchart in Excel for you, show you how this would look. But anyway, I have two nested if statements. These are called nested if statements. So at the end here, this is my processing. So processing is complete. The largest int was found. So let's display it. Remember how we displayed hello world with an echo statement? So if echo, we just echo, and we'll make this a paragraph element. The largest number is, now what is the largest number? We know that the largest number here is going to be 465, but we can't just hard code in here 465. That wouldn't make any sense at all. We need to say the largest number is the number that's contained in this variable that we went through all the trouble creating, named largest. So to do this in PHP, let's terminate our literal string here with a double quote, and we'll use a dot. If we were in English class or speech, we'd call this a period, but around programming, around computers, it's called a dot. The dot is actually the concatenation operator, fancy term that means combining. So we're going to combine this literal text string, which looks like HTML because it is HTML, and we're going to combine that with, yep, sure enough, our variable. So largest, and then dot, and then double quotes, largest number is, and then for lack of creativity, I'll just put a couple exclamations here, and terminate my P element. That looks pretty good. Okay, so let's look at the statement. The statement begins with a statement in PHP similar to a sentence in the English language. A sentence has to start with a uppercase letter. In this case, this is a sentence. An English sentence begins with an uppercase letter, ends in a period. A PHP statement begins in a reserved word and ends in a statement terminator. Here's our reserved word echo, and here is our statement terminator, which is a semicolon. Inside this echo we have a literal string, we have a concatenation operator, we have a variable, we have a concatenation operator, and a literal string. To conclude our PHP code, just for grins, I will echo a horizontal rule, and terminate the statement. So everything here is PHP. This is my PHP. You can go ahead and cookbook this if you want to. If you want to flowchart it to figure out how it works, you'll see how it works. But when all of this is processed, when all of these ifs are executed, largest that started out with a variable as a variable with the initial value of 0 will not have 0. In this case, it's going to have 465. I mean, this could be anything. It could be 999. I'll change that. So when this runs, I should see a 999. Let's go ahead and save this. And now I need to FTP this up to my server into week 5, and then I'll connect this to my website, and we'll check and see how if largest.php does in fact work. Okay, let's go ahead and FTP our work to our server. My subdomain is dmohle.citfcc.com, so that is where I will be FTPing this. Please do not FTP your work to my subdomain. Use your own. So FTP. Besides, hopefully no one's cracked my password yet. It's not password. Take a second to get me there. It does. I like to look at this in Windows Explorer. It's going to challenge me again for my password, which is fine. And now that I'm logged on, remember on our server, everything, all our work goes into the HTTP docs folder, and this is our root. When we display our work, we don't enter in HTTP docs in the web address. HTTP docs, last week I created a whole bunch of folders. Here's week 5. This is my server. This is my server. I will now open up Windows Explorer on my local drive, which is right here, week 5, so that I don't confuse anything. I like to view details, and here's largest PHP. Click and drop that into week 05. Now when I key in http://dmohle.citfcc.com/week05, and notice I did not include the HTTP docs when I want to look at this, look at my page, largest PHP, I should see my actual page. So into my browser, http:// dmol.citfcc.com / that's my subdomain name. Now the directory is week 05 because that's where I just FTP'd it. And what's the name of my PHP file? Largest. Does it matter if I spell it with an uppercase T .php? The answer is yes, it does. Rio has found space for us on an Apache server, and Apache is case sensitive. It's not like DOS. It will not find this. When I press enter, it's going to give me a 404 file not found error. There you go, because this is an uppercase T. It was saved. The file that's on my server is lowercase l, lowercase a, etc., lowercase t. Now this will work. Oh, and great, and now I get an error. So I need to go back and debug this on line 72. Okay, looking at my code block, I realize that this code block starts here but never ends. So I have to end that. There we go. So my code block starts with opening French brace, ends with an opening French brace. Same thing here. The else can begin here and end there. That makes sense. So check these carefully. That looks a lot better. Alright, save that. Go back to my local drive, largestPHP. I can tell by the date that that was updated. Push that out to my server. Yes, I want to replace it. And let's go ahead and run this again. So to run my code, it is gbp dmol.citfcc.com / week 05 largest PHP. I had some information here. The largest, my little program did work. You can see down here, the largest number is 999. I need to clean this up a little bit because it did not appear in my main section, my main panel, so some little CSS work to do. Anyway, this will conclude part 1 of the largest of 3, and I'll go ahead and publish this video now.